Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, folks, Beck and Day. Why are they so unpopular? I don't quite get it. We're also going to talk about the fake injury solution that may be coming down the path. And, of course, our boy Lane Kiffin seems to be the poster child of that for obvious reasons.
Allegedly.
Anyway, let's talk about Ryan Day and Beck. For some reason, all these guys do is win, and nobody seems to like them. I don't get it. Now, Ryan Day, I've covered him primarily because of the whole Connor Stallions thing, Ohio State, all the connections and tentacles of that. And Ryan Day seems to be taking the brunt of it for some reason because they've lost, obviously, to Michigan.
It's got to be America's team.
Now, 3 of those wins happened while Connor Stallions was either on the staff or had just been removed, which obviously affected Michigan. Prior to Connor Stallions showing up, Ohio State beat Michigan something like 16 out of 17 years. And Ryan Day's first year, he whooped up on them in 2019 by like 3 touchdowns. So it's not like Ryan Day was having any trouble with Michigan, nor was any other head coach there. But Connor showed up and, all of a sudden they knew when they were going to throw, they knew when they were going to run, and, Michigan got real good real fast.
Sign Steeler guy.
This year, they've had 5 losses for some reason. But anyway, let's take a look at Ryan Day. Let's see, 13-1 in 2019. Then, of course, they had the shortened season. Then in 21, 11-2, even with losing to Michigan. 22, 11-2, 11-2. This year, he's 13-2. Now, granted, a lot of the people that were angry with him were super angry after the Michigan loss this year. This one is on him. They lost by 3 points. They should have beaten the crap out of Michigan. They didn't. Some of that is probably where he got too conservative. And since then, they've been on fire. But right after that game, there was a huge chunk that wanted him gone.
Fire Ryan Day.
It's the worst moment of my life. You got to fire Ryan Day.
I'll never recover from this. Fire Ryan Day yesterday.
Yeah, they were all saying fire Ryan Day. Now, I'm sure those 3 individuals there are probably like, they're probably not saying that anymore. But there was a huge chunk, probably 25, 30% of the fan base that wanted rid of that guy. I mean, I'd heard it all the time in the comment section. And I was like, why are you this way? Well, I don't get it. Guy's winning at 87% rate. What's the problem? There's no scandals up there. You've got great recruiting. You got plenty of money, but they just don't like him. And I've thought about that. I'm wondering if, some people think it's because he looks like the Tiger King, or maybe, my thinking is it's probably just too much just for men, and that annoys people. But for some reason, they don't like him. Well, we've got another issue. Carson Beck. All the guy does is win, and nobody seems to like him. He left Georgia, went to Miami. The Georgia fans, they didn't seem to care. Honestly, they were like, whatever. We got Gunner. Everything will be fine.
I'm gone.
Good, then get the hell out of my life. Who needs you? Beat it. Leave me alone. I'm sorry, babe. I didn't mean that either. I just yell sometimes because I get so scared.
Look at this guy's winning percentage and look at his stats. He's been at Georgia for 4 years. He patiently waited behind Stetson Bennett, which everybody says they want you to do. So Carson did that, and he earned his position. He won the role. He beat out Gunner and started in 2023. He threw at 72%, 4,000 yards, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, a great rating of 167. Everything's fine. This year, it did dip to 65%, 28 touchdowns, which is more interceptions as well, 12. He had to do more on his own. So those aren't bad numbers by any stretch, and they won a ton of ball games. Good grief. They won the SEC, and the year before, they only had the 1 loss, which was to Alabama, barely in the SEC. So, I mean, he's done a ton of winning, but people don't seem to like him. Now, one of the reasons his percentage rate or his completion rate was low this year might have had nothing to do with him. Yeah, Georgia football, #1 in drops this season. Bulldogs were #1 team in the country in drops, and unfortunately for Georgia, that stat had a lot to do with the loss of Ole Miss when they lost to Ole Miss. And up to that point, they had 27 drops. I think it wound up being well over 30 this year. And I saw a lot of those drops, and they were right in the guy's hands. I mean, Carson Beck can spin it. He just flat out can. So, he's probably had 2 or 3 or 4 points shaved off his completion rate over that for that reason alone. So he still had a darn good year Any other quarterback in the country, they'd be like, man, that guy's awesome. But at Georgia, not so much. Probably because he didn't win a national championship. When you've had 2 in a row and then you almost win every game except one, you barely lose in the SEC championship to Alabama the next year, oh, he's no good. Well, we'll tolerate him. Then the next year, you lose 2 ball games, which is just unbelievable for Georgia. They don't even know how to deal with that. In the regular season, they don't lose games in the regular season. So, of course, they were down on him on that. He did throw some interceptions in those games. But then he straightened it out, and I can tell you my team, the Vols, we've had no luck against him. So I just don't quite get it. Now, I did a report yesterday, and I showed where Matt B. Great and Kangaroo Black talked about how they were very upset with Jalen Milroe, and they were ready for him to go. So there was also a story out that had been reported that Alabama had reached out to Carson Beck when he entered the portal, and they were interested to know if he would want to talk, possibly come to Alabama, which I think he'd be a good fit in a Kalen DeBoer offense. Now, obviously, he's gone to Miami, so that ship has sailed. But that didn't surprise me in the slightest. But a lot of the Alabama fans didn't appreciate it. They're like, we don't need this guy. We just don't. Even Kangaroo Black sent me a comment, and he said, trust me, man, DeBoer didn't go after Beck. Now, that's not being mean to Carson Beck, but that's the way most Alabama fans felt. And Kangaroo represents a ton of them. So there's just no love for Carson Beck. I don't quite get it. I don't know whether they both are in that category of born on third base, because if you're the head coach of Ohio State, you should always win. If you're the quarterback at Georgia, you should always win. And that's a tough place to be, because you either have to be perfect or we don't want you anymore. So those 2 guys are very unpopular, and I don't know that I don't get it, honestly. I think they're both really good. But it is what it is. You can't argue with the fact that, they're not well thought of. Maybe that'll change when Ryan Day wins a natty this year, which he probably will next week. But if he loses, I probably want rid of him. Anyway, Carson Beck will have some success down there in Miami. He's going to be surrounded by a bunch of talented guys, and he should do well. All right, now we're going to talk about all these fake injuries. And as you know, I've covered the crap out of this. This is something that kind of became a mission of mine to put a stop to it. And we've all seen the obvious fake injuries, especially Ole Miss. They were just awful this year. Let me show you some of this crap. Now, you folks saw this a while back. This was actually against Kentucky. Look at this right here. Go down. Oh, God. Oh, I've just never been hurt so bad. Go down. Go down. I'm telling you, you need to go down. We need a timeout. Oh, there we go. There's a free timeout. That's on offense, which is kind of rare. Almost always it's on defense, but yeah. So, everybody's seen that. It's over and over. We saw the ones where Lane would be going like this, telling the guys to go down, and just it got pretty obvious. And people got aggravated because it was affecting games big time. I mean, it totally kills people's momentum, and he got really good at it. That Kentucky game was unbelievable. Somehow Kentucky beat Ole Miss, and they must have had 11 injuries. Every time Kentucky got a first down or a splash play, boom, somebody went down. So anyway, Greg Sankey finally did something about it. And the announcers are calling him out and calling it absurd. And nothing's getting done. Greg Sankey, where are you, Greg Sankey? Are you going to do something about this? Are you going to stand up and do something about this? Or are you just going to sit there like a potted plant? I mean, it's absurd. Yeah, so he finally did do something about it. He came out and said, look, put a stop to it now. I'm sick of it. He put a directive out to every single coach, and he said, if you do this anymore, I'm going to hammer you. $50,000 fine. The first fake injury that we determine is fake that comes in front of my desk, $50,000. You do it a second time, $100,000. You do it a third time, I'm going to suspend you for a game, head coach. That got everybody's attention, and Lane and several others kind of quit doing that crap. So we didn't see near as much of it after that. It probably solved 90% of the problem. But now they're thinking about solving it 100%. And this is something we've talked about a lot. And Ross Dellinger's talked about this on Twitter. He said the discussion point in Charlotte at the AFCA convention about fake injuries says any injured player would be sidelined for the rest of the drive. So that's something we've talked a lot about. Said coaches could use a timeout to reinstate the player. It's expected to be on the agenda at the head coaches meeting today. So in other words, you get an injury, you're out that entire series. So you might miss 3 plays, you might miss 10 plays. But not until the ball gets turned over to the other side are you going to be able to get back out on that field unless they call a timeout. That would solve it. We talked a lot about that. I don't know if they'll go ahead with that or not. They might. If it had not been for Sankey finally doing something about it, I know they would go ahead and do this. Right now, they may stick with Sankey and just let him be the hammer, and that way they don't have to do that, but that's what they're talking about. The coaches want this solved, and I think it would be best if they did, but again, they are talking about it, so we may get a rules change for 2025 to solve this for good, and that would do it. So anyway, did want to talk about all this. Like I said, I don't quite get the unpopularity of those two guys, but it's kind of hard to argue it. It's out there. And then the fake injury stuff, you call it the Lane Kiffin rule. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit the like button. Lets me know to continue to cover all these big college sports stories. This is the second time I've had to do this. The first recording got messed up with my hard drive. So this is my second go around. For all you YouTubers out there, you know the pain of this. And if you haven't subscribed, hit this little button right here. That will subdue some of my pain that I'm going through right now from the double recording. And right over here's the most recent video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy based on your viewing history. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay. I hope this worked.